What shirt you got on? Waymaker?
Waymaker, man.
Light in the darkness?
Miracle Worker. You know my book that's never going to come out.
When's the Pat Williams book coming out?
That's what I'm talking about. So he came. I got a call from the publisher about 4 weeks ago, and they said, we're finally moving forward on your book. I was like, oh, great. It's been 2 years. It's been written for 2 years. It finished. And he goes, I'm sending you over a contract to sign or whatever. Now, we'd already sort of gone through all the
preliminaries.
Yeah, all this stuff. And so we're already moving forward. And so I was like, okay, cool. So when do you think this book is going to get published? And he goes, oh, we're thinking fall of 2023. I go, that's like a year and a half from now. Like, it's already been in your pocket for a year. Like, it's just I've never experienced being traditionally published before, though, so it's not like it's something that I was used to.
Yeah.
So what would you do in a situation where, like, oh, you're so excited to finally have you've created something you want the world to see, you think it's going to be a blessing, but yet you find yourself at the whims of the publishing company, and you are not a priority to them.
It's sitting on a shelf, basically. It's like in a closet. It seems like all dusty.
Yeah, and so. I just got to believe that God has a plan for
timing.
The timing of this, because it doesn't make no sense otherwise. I wrote this book, interviewed all these people, 250 Hall of Famers, celebrities, sports teams owners, broadcasters, all these people. I'm like, this is good, God. Yeah. You put me in a position to really do something on this earth. I'm sharing God with all these people. It'll be a new audience for people to hear God in a new way, because it's like, the sports world isn't necessarily talking about Jesus, and it's all these guys who love Jesus, but don't necessarily bring it up in their everyday life. And when they're out there doing signings or they're playing the game or whatever, they're not really talking about Jesus. So I was really excited for this book, and it's just like the more and more it inches along. You're
crickets.
Like, I mean, what's have you ever something like that? Not necessarily a book, but like you pray for the loose stuff. So it's like, what is it for you that it's like is it ever gonna come? Is the thing ever gonna happen?
Or when you get really excited, then you do it, and it's like nothing happens.
Nothing at all.
Yeah, or it seems like nothing, or you think it's bigger than it is, and then it's like, oh, no one thinks that it's as big as you think it is. They're like, yeah, great idea.
I can't tell you how many great ideas I've shared with Megan that have been the world's best ideas that I've ever had in my whole life, and then we launched that sucker, and you watch the tumbleweeds drive by, right?
And then she's like, oh, that's great, but you got to go change a diaper, or the dishes need done, or
yeah, man,
forgot something at the store.
It's so funny too, because when I met you, you and I both had one kid. When we met at the radio station so many years ago, we did the very first episode of Let's Change St. Louis at the radio station together, and now we're still doing it so many years later. But when we met, we both had one kid. Now we have 7 between us. We are knee deep in diapers and everything else, right? So what's it been like for you? You're a little bit older than me. You just had another one. So it's like we are, even though we've got this mission in our hearts, the vision from God to walk out. We do have a regular life where we've got kids and responsibilities, and we just bought houses, and like we're doing projects behind the scenes, and it's like we're committing our life to this. So what's it been like for you in that season?
Well, my kids keep me really humble. You go do the ministry thing, and it's amazing. And it might be a prayer gathering, and there's hundreds there, and you really feel the Holy Spirit moving, and you're excited, and the church is coming together, and then you go home and like, oh yeah, we need diapers on the way home, or oh yeah, the kid didn't sleep, or oh yeah, all these things. So it's very humbling, because you go from you see what's important really quick, like, oh yeah, I have a family. Plus, in general, just to raise them in the environment we get to live in, and the things we get to do, I think we don't know what the payoff's going to be, but I believe it's going to be the deposit that we're putting in there, even in the midst of it. I mean, even recently going 4 nights of Revival Fest and taking my kids every night, I'm like, I'm exhausted. Okay. How many hours?
How do you do it, man? How do you? So Revival Fest just came to St. Louis, and if anybody has been to like any sort of like ministry, like a parachurch ministry like event, whether it's a revival or whether it's just like we're having church, it's not Sunday, this is not normal church, but we're having
no childcare.
Yeah,
right?
no childcare,
no children's ministry.
And you show up, bro, with all the kids, and you got toys, and they're running laps around the building. Now, I grew up when I first started having kids, like I wouldn't go to places unless they had childcare, but you do the opposite.
Well, we hope that it's going to pay off someday.
Right, sure.
It's not even like going to the event, John. It's getting ready for the event, getting ready for the service. Because, we don't want to take the tablets, but they're a necessary evil. So then they got to be charged, right? If they're not charged, that's a problem. Where's the headphones? Okay, we need the headphones for everybody. And in my family, my kids, I don't know what it is. Like, it's good. They love water. So everyone's got their water bottle. So we got to find all the water bottles for everyone in the house. Got to fill all the water bottles.
Yeah.
Then you got to make the snacks and the food, right? Because there's not going to be food there. So you got to make the peanut butter and jellies.
Ah!
You got to get the
Not
fruit.
the peanut butter and jelly.
You got to get all the stuff. And then you got to make sure you got stuff for the baby. That's a whole nother animal. That's a bag in itself. The diapers, milk for later. So it's almost more exhausting getting everything ready.
Story right now.
Just to get there. And then when you get there, you just make it work the best you can. We try to like engage in worship as a family.
Yeah.
Because it's noisy anyway, and
Yes.
there's a little bit of freedom.
Yes,
so
yes.
if that 45 minutes to an hour and a half, whatever it is, of worship, we can all just sort of engage, enjoy. Then the benefit there for the kids is, okay, now you can watch the tablet, or now Brooke will be in the service and I'll take one of the kids maybe out of the service where I can still hear. Where we were recently, they had a kids room where you could watch the video screen and hear still, so you could still engage. So we try to just take turns, but it's not easy. But also the alternative is putting these, they'd be at home, they don't get to experience this. So I'm giving my kids something I didn't have, and I'm hoping it will pay off. And this specific, 4 days, I'm still tired from it.
Yeah.
But someone took a picture of Lolly, my middle daughter, of her dancing during it, and like the joy that she was experiencing. And so for me, it was like that one picture was like, okay, this is why we do this. This is why we did all the stuff I said to be here. And we just try to give ourselves grace and know our kids aren't going to be perfect. And yeah, we don't want them run around the whole building necessarily, although at times, but just, hey, they're kids and they're coming.
Yeah.
And let's do it.
Yeah, I find that for me, I don't follow the same philosophy. Like in my heart, I want to be like, you know what? Let's bring the kids to everything. But every time these events start, it's bedtime, and like they start these events at bedtime, and they got school the next day, or I already know what. Like, how do you feel about this? Like, the worst time in my life as a parent, and I don't know if you really will agree with this or not, but is like you're done with the long event that you normally wouldn't be at. It's 9 or 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and you're driving home. Everybody's passed out in the back. It's so quiet and wonderful. But the second you park in that driveway, bro, everything changes. The screaming, the crying, you got to carry everybody to bed. You got to unpack the car. Somehow we have 7 bags. I don't know why we brought 7 bags to this thing.
It's for the 7 water bottles. I'm telling you, man, we got a water bottle bag.
So you got all these bags. Everybody's screaming and crying. And it's just like, it is the worst moment that I have as a parent, because I'm just like, I lose all my joy. I'm like, get to bed right now. You can't be up. It's like, I just lose it. I just lose
Revival's here, but you better get to bed. Jesus was awesome. He just met me at the altar, but it's time to get to bed. No. Well, yeah, that it is crazy, but also like, I feel like every night bedtime's crazy.
Yeah.
For us, it should be okay. I don't know why we can't read the book, brush the teeth, put the pajamas on, get in bed, not get up 7 times, or need 12 more things. So for me, while it is crazy that they are asleep and then they wake up and then they want this or they want that, it almost goes smoother than my normal routine at bedtime.
Yeah. It's because everybody's sort of wore out. Everybody's ready to fall out.
But there is, I don't know if you've experienced this, like when you get in the car and they're still awake because they're just sensory overload.
Oh yeah.
There's that first like 5 to 15 minutes where they say they're hungry, or they say they want this, or they say they want that, but really they're just tired, but they won't fall asleep, and everyone's talking, and you just want it to be quiet. You're like, can it just be quiet?
Yeah, for 1 minute. And this is not the life that I thought I was going to live, Kurt. I don't know about you. So, I mean, you had kids. You started having kids later in life, you know. So, prior to having kids, what did you think your life was going to look like?
We had trouble having kids. So we weren't like, we wanted kids and couldn't have them for a long time. So we just kept, following Jesus, doing ministry, doing missions. And the good thing for us, we were in an environment for those years where we saw people do it as a family. So maybe that's one reason I have the ability to have the mindset, is I saw people do it overseas, all over the world, where kids were involved. And of course, I didn't know how difficult it was. It was like, man, they're doing it. They seem like rock stars, and it's amazing what they're doing. And you don't know the cost of like, yeah, my kid needs to get up tomorrow for school. And at, 7 o'clock, he doesn't want to wake up, and he doesn't want to get dressed, and he doesn't want to eat before he goes. But once I had kids, I didn't know, I knew it was possible, but it was just been a journey for us of how we make it happen. And of course, with one, it was a lot easier, and the older they get, it's actually harder.
Yeah.
Because of the age gap between them. You know, it's like one's dancing, having a great time. One only wants to be on the tablet and doesn't want to worship at all. And the other one, you know, is a baby, still a toddler, but she's moving and grooving and doesn't want to sit still and
Wants all the attention.
Yeah, wants
Cuddles,
the attention and all this stuff. And you hold her and she wants down and she's down and she wants up. And we've just kind of learned that. I guess it comes back to this, John. You know, it was easier when we could just go to these things and receive for ourselves. You know,
Yes.
if we want to use that language, like I'm just going to go. I'm gonna hear from God. He's going to speak to me. Some people are going to pray for me. I'm going to get filled up. It's going to be just this time. And in life now, that's just not where we're at. So it's like, are we going to be flexible to receive maybe in a different way where it feels like we're not getting anything, where it feels like we're distracted the whole time? Or, you know, because it's not going back. Like we're not for you and me.
You
like
can't put them back in the
no,
oven.
it's not going back. And this is where we are, and it's going to continue to change.
Yeah.
And so we figured out along the way and realize as a family we're in this place that we're all receiving together. And right now, maybe the kids. Yeah, and it feels like a lot of times, like, what are they even getting? You know,
Yeah.
like, are they getting anything? Are they hearing anything?
Yeah.
Is this a waste of time? You know, all those type of things. But then when you come home and maybe they give you this one-liner about something that was said or
it
worship
happened to
song.
me. We were at church. We did the baby dedication thing or whatever. You know, they do at church. My kids have never been dedicated or anything like that, and so I was like, all right, they're trying to do the infants, but I was like, can we do all my kids? You know, my 7-year-old, my 6-year-old, you know, and all this. Well, they're 6 and 5, but they get up there and the pastor lays hands on all the kids and he stops at my oldest. She's 6 years old, and he calls her a prophetess, right? And he's like, you know, God's got a special plan for you.
And you're
like,
crying, hopefully, at that point.
I'm like, oh, she's a prophet, Lord help her. And so, like 3 days later, Maya's like, Daddy, we wake up, and we're eating breakfast, and she's like, Daddy, what's God's plan for my life? And I'm like, what? Have you read my book? Are you so excited? God does have a plan for you. And she's like, well, that's the guy. The guy called me a prophet. The guy, right?
Yeah,
the guy.
Some guy. I don't know. Some guy.
Yeah, he calls me a prophetess, and he said I had a plan for my life. I was like, well, sure, he sure does. God definitely has a plan for your life. She's like, well, what is it? I was like, well, I don't know. We got to pray. We got to ask God what it is. But it's that moment. It's like, okay, they can get it. At the same time, it doesn't make it any less like stressful and frustrating to bring a bunch of kids to an event and be wanting to get something from the Lord, but being so distracted. That's what it is for me. It's such a distraction. And I'm not to the point immaturity where you are, where you're just like, we're taking it, we're going to figure it out, we're going to do a thing, we're all going to get something, because I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to get anything if I got to keep picking up baby Johnny, if I got to keep doing this. And I'm not trying to be mean or trying to be like, you can't get anything if you bring the kids. This is just my personal take on things, but it's like, it can be like, someone's going to have a meltdown. They're going to start crying when prayer altering. Like something's going to happen. And, it's like, it's why I don't take my kids to restaurants anymore, Kevin. You're Kurt. Kurt, I want to know, do you go out to eat with your kids anymore?
Only when we have to. Like, we don't intentionally, like, go out to a restaurant for the most part. Like a birthday, or we get invited to something to celebrate. But I guess it's kind of the same story. It's like, okay, do we have the tablet? Do we need this? What do we do? Oh, they want this food. They don't want that. Or the kids' meal's like $10.
Oh, bro.
And you got to get them. You can't split the kids' meal because for whatever reason your kids won't do that. But then you get them both a kids' meal.
They don't eat nothing.
They don't eat it. And so you got these cold fries and these chicken fingers that are just whatever.
You take them to go. They sit in the refrigerator for
exactly
3 days, and then you throw them away.
So it's a similar thing. If I pay for food somewhere, I want to enjoy the food. I want to enjoy the conversation with my wife.
Yeah.
And I want it to be enjoyable instead of juggling everything. And then by the time you eat, you're just like, it's a mess. Or the baby's like pulling the food or dumping the food or whatever. Yeah. And so, especially now, because everything costs so much more.
So much more.
So if I go, I want to enjoy it.
Yeah.
So right now it's a no-go unless it's a special occasion or something.
Yeah, we put the annex on restaurants, bro. I tell you, because it's just like going to some sort of church thing. It's 7 o'clock at night.
Yeah, it's always the wrong time, you know.
It's the wrong time, and here's what I found. And people are like, will you go to eat with your family? I go, no. I go, because I know before I step foot in this restaurant that a meltdown is going to happen. I don't know which kid is going to do it. I don't know which part of the service it's going to happen. Is they're going to are they going to throw a temper tantrum because they don't like the seat they're sitting in? Is it going to be because the crayons are the wrong colors? Is it going to be because they don't want the food? They asked for chicken nuggets and they got chicken strips. Like, what is the meltdown going to be?
Is there going to be no? Is there going to be no lid on the water and the whole thing gets dumped over the food or dumped over them and then they're cold and there's no extra clothes?
Yeah, and then the little baby wants to chime in and like, I'm hungry now. Like, no, we just fed you before we walked in here. And there's all these.
Oh, sorry, sir. The cup of milk doesn't come with that meal. You got to order the $7 cup of milk extra. You know, you can only have water or juice that's hopped up on sugar, but we don't want that. We want milk. Oh, okay, you can't have that.
Yeah, and so man, and so it's like I already know. And then they bring you a bill, and you're like, $75. I have 4 kids who barely ate anything. What on earth is happening?
Isn't it kids eat free something somewhere somehow some way?
When did kids meals become $10, man?
I don't know. I don't know. And a lot of times they're not even that good.
Dude, it's the same mac and cheese I got in my house. They can't even like zhuzh it up a little bit, put some like seasoning or something on it.
Extra cheese.
Yeah, some real cheese, not some powdered cheese. I don't know what's going on. So I don't take the kids. You know, I do take them. So we will go out to eat occasionally. We will go to the Christian things. Typically, though, in my house, either Megan will stay home or I'll send Megan to go. Like Megan loves to go worship, and so Megan loves going to concerts and stuff. So I'll stay home with kids that night.
Yeah.
You know, she'll go see Maverick City or she'll go see whoever's in town and go worship that way. That's really the way she connects with God. Do you find that you and Brooke have a way of worshiping those different styles? Like, are you more a word guy and she's a worshiper or something like that?
We both really love worship, so we both enjoy, but we do the like transition off and on. Like, okay, I've been doing this, now it's your turn to go. You know, and we've every night, even of when we were going for 4 nights in a row, the question, was kind of like, am I going to go? Are you going to go?
Yeah.
Are we all going to go? What do you feel? And it was almost every night, even a couple hours before it was time to go. We're trying to figure it out because I want to make sure she can enjoy too.
Sure.
And especially in my case, Brooke's home with the kids during the day, so she's got kids pulling on her all the time. So then to be in worship where she really wants to, and the kids are, pulling on her, asking her questions. I don't know what it is about worship and church services, but the questions kids have, they just seem to like come out of the woodwork, all the things they need in the moment. It's just like, hey, do I have this? Can I have this? Where's that? I need a tissue. I need water. I need chapstick. Where's the bathroom? Just all the stuff. And you're like,
You're like, I didn't know the church had so many tithing cards because like they're pulling them out. Of all
You can guarantee if my kids are at something and there's cards or promo or whatever, they're not staying in the same shape that they were intended to be in. They're getting ripped up. They're getting tossed. They're getting thrown all over that place. So we try to trade off and trade on so we all can receive.
I think
depending on what it looks like.
Yeah. So you and Brooke were married in what year?
2007.
2007. So tell me about how you and Brooke got together.
So we separately were doing missions ministry work in Florida, and a friend of mine who I was doing ministry with and a friend of hers, they began to date, and someone said, hey, her roommate said, hey, you got to meet Kurt. And it's a funny story because I went to this Tampa Bay Rays baseball game with my friend and another friend, and he was going on a date with this girl that would eventually be his wife, who was Brooke's roommate. But the thing Brooke's roommate told her about me was, you got to meet this guy, Kurt. I think you'd like him because he eats a lot of food.
Why is that a turn on?
I don't know. She's like, is he a big guy or what is he? Like, why would I like him?
She needs to know if you're chubby.
And, it had been a long week at work. I go to the baseball game, so I got chicken strips. I got a hot dog. I just did it up right, man. I ate all this food. So her roommate is just like, you got to meet this guy. Like he eats a lot of food. And she's thinking, I don't know if that's like the
quite a description,
what I'm looking for, like a guy that eats a bunch of food. But, we eventually went on a double date bowling and kind of like, okay, where's this going? And from there, didn't have time to it was either going to be real or not. Pretty much. It was like, I'm either going to date this girl and go down, because we were a little bit older and just ministry life and, hours. There wasn't time to not figure out what was going on.
So back up. So give a little broader side of the story. So you say ministry work. So, tell everybody about, how you got into ministry work and how you guys got connected in sort of you were in a different world of ministry than most people take on.
Yeah. So, at 18, I said yes to Jesus to be into ministry full time, which for me seemed like international missions. But out of college, I studied missions in college because I figured if I'm going to do missions, I need to study missions. And anytime I got a chance, whether it's spring break or any break in school or the summer, I would do missions. Whatever mission trip I could, whether it was locally or globally, I'm like, I'm going to do that for 2 weeks. I'm going to go to Ukraine for 2 weeks. I'm going to go to China for a month. I'm going to go to Corpus Christi, Texas for spring break. I'm going to figure this out. Like, if I'm going to do this, I got to figure out I don't have a clue. I don't have a grid. I don't know what it looks like. So did that, studied in college, and then out of there ended up in China for 2 years doing missions. And out of China, when I came back, I didn't really have a clue.
Hold on, China. Like the China.
The China, the nation that's massive.
Masks were a thing.
Yeah, I was there during the SARS epidemic.
Wow.
So
you got to wear a mask early on, huh?
Yeah, I got to see what it kind of was like early on.
Early adopter. So tell me, what was life like in China when you were a missionary in China?
Yeah, so, it was everyday life, lived in a big city. But our people group we were trying to reach were out in the hillside, the countries, the rural area. And so our whole thing was if we're going to get them the gospel in their language and to their culture, but we don't know where this people group necessarily lives, then there has to be a group of people that go out and find where they live so that we know where they live, so then we can bring the gospel in different methods and ways, whether that's through printed or video or all the different ways that you can. And so I was on a team that we were basically like a Joshua and Caleb, where we'd go out to scout the land and see where this people group lived.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. We had a map and we'd figure out, okay, we know they live in certain areas. So it isn't like we're going to Illinois, but none of our people group live there. We know like they're in Illinois in these certain that's kind of an example, and we're going to go and we're going to look. So that's what we do. We'd go out on these buses, a few different buses, stay in a hotel, eat some good food. And then we'd be off in no man's land, if you will, following these maps, hiking for 4, 5, 6 days, sleeping wherever we found a place to sleep, filtering our water from a stream.
Oh my goodness!
Eating the snacks that we brought, the food that we brought. We brought like instant ramen or whatever, and boil water at night.
Did people laugh at you? They were like, silly American.
Well, they're seeing these two Americans, and some of them had never seen anyone. You
don't speak the language. What are you doing?
We knew like enough to basically survive. That was it, and we would go hike for 4, 5, 6 days, and we were kind of
give me some Mandarin. What do you know? What do you remember?
Dude, I one of the craziest, the first night we went out, so we're like, we're gonna be tough. It was me and my buddy. We're not gonna take a tent. It's too heavy. We're not gonna put a tent in our backpack, right? Like, we don't want it. We're better than this. It's too heavy. So, and at the time we had our backpacks,
yeah, and
we had a rain cover that would go on it. And so we get off the bus, we hike all day. Okay, it's getting dark. I guess we're going to sleep somewhere. So there was a side of the road, and there was a bunch of pine trees. So there's these pine needles there. So I'm like, well, that looks comfortable, if we're going to sleep here. So me and my buddy, we put our bags down. We use them as pillows. We put the rain covers over. I think maybe we had like a rain jacket on, or if something were to happen, we would kind of be covered. Right. And we lay down. Dude, this is like in 2003, so this is a long time ago, but I still remember it like it's yesterday. He goes, well, I guess we're gonna get some sleep. I guess this is how the Cowboys did it. And we had baseball caps on, and we just pulled them down over our heads, and we like went to sleep. We're sleeping, and we wake up. I don't think it wasn't a great night's sleep. It wasn't that comfortable. And we wake up, and there's ants everywhere.
Oh my gosh.
And these ants are crawling all over us. And they ate some holes through the rain cover on our packs. And we got up and
ants.
We're like dusting them off of ourselves. And like, oh my goodness, man. But the Lord protected us, because it could have been, it could have been really bad. And we still had like 3-4 days of hiking to go. And another time, I think it was on that same first trip, we got to this place where we had to cross this river. Mm-hmm. And we're like, what are we going to do? Because we can't get our boots wet. Do we take our boots off, put them in our packs, walk across? How deep is the river? But we got to get to the other side. And out of nowhere, man, this local comes out of the woods. And he's like, I'm going to take you guys across. He makes us get on his back. And he carries us
like an elephant.
He carries us across the river. And he's strong as can be, man. So he carries me and my friend across the river to
You're not a small guy.
The other side. Yeah, I was pretty skinny then, just from the hiking, and so I was just a little bit different than I am now. Yeah. But just wild times, man. And we did that for almost 2 years, where we'd go out on these trips and try to find where the people group was, and just
crazy.
Hike, and sometimes stay in people's homes if they would invite us in, but most of the time just sleep wherever.
And so when you minister to somebody though, like what's that look like? So I mean, you don't know, like you said, you picked up enough, I guess. So
Yeah.
you know how to say like Jesus loves you and stuff. And
So we weren't necessarily ministering to them initially. We were just figuring out where they were. Now, eventually, what we did is we had gospel materials in their local dialect that was
gotcha.
like a Jesus film, something for the kids, and we had these resources in our backpacks and in our bags, and we would hike through the village, and then we would drop them off discreetly, because it was illegal to do this.
yeah, that's another thing. So not only are you back to back with your buddy in the pine needles like Forrest Gump in Vietnam,
Yeah.
but you guys are illegally sharing the love of Jesus with
Yeah,
people
we could get arrested.
2 years. For 2 years, you could.
Arrested at any moment, and in fact, we had a short-term team come, and somehow the cops are like, "Who are you?" And they told them who they were, and they gave up our names.
They were like, Kurt did it.
Yeah, Kurt Wilson and this other guy, like, yeah, we're with them. It's like, oh, great guys. Yeah, but eventually we dropped off the gospel in all these different places. So
That's awesome.
Under haystacks, or where there was a place where people would fill their water, get water was running there. So where people are going to congregate. So we literally to this day have no idea if someone watched one of those videos or read one of those things and knows Jesus. So I laugh at what I'm doing now, like this pioneer thing, like in me, like this John the Baptist that all people say. I guess it's always been there because I pioneered in the mountains of China. I pioneered in cities, different ways, and but I literally won't know till heaven what happened.
Yeah, but you said yes to Jesus. You said, and then it takes you to China. Now, I've told God many times, I said, God, I'm ready to go wherever you want me to go.
But it's only A, B, and C.
It better be in the USA because I am not ready to cross any sort of geographical lines or dialect lines or anything like that, because I look at missionary work as some of the hardest work in the world. You're walking into an unknown place, an unknown culture, speaking an unknown language to talk about Jesus. Like, look, God, can't you sign up Christian guy in that city to do this? Like, look, I live in St. Louis. I'll be the St. Louis guy. I'll be this, it's some of the hardest work. And you've told me so many stories off the air of like how like the toilet system works and how, there's buckets involved at times. And I'm like,
squatty potties. Yeah.
And that is not something that I'm ready to sign up for. Jesus, I love you. I don't know if I love you bucket pooping enough, but so I always measure, like, when I see you guys, I'm like, I got to put something in the bucket. So what's like you shared some already. So what is some of the hardship that a missionary goes through that you've experienced as far as like the conditions?
Well, the condition, like once you just get used to live sort of a different way with these different conditions, yes, you miss the normal things, but you kind of just get used to it. The harder part is more family related. If you miss your family, of course you miss there's certain moments where you're like, man, if I could have an Emo's pizza and some toasted wraps and some Ted Drews right now, my world would be much better, because I'm tired of rice, or I'm tired of this, or I'm tired of that. I don't know. For me, the conditions, it's kind of like, it's just camping, but really, really worse,
Yeah.
And so it's we don't have everything we need. And I've done it so much and been to so many places that it's just kind of just roll with the punches, make it work. I mean, being in Mozambique and no running water at times.
Oh my goodness.
You can't wash your clothes, and when you do wash them, you got to wash them by hand, which isn't great.
Yeah.
But
they stay wet for a while too.
Yeah, then you got to hang them up to dry, and then of course you never get them that clean because you're doing it by hand. But the no running water, so now like, oh, we need to filter water to drink it, or we can't take a shower, or I can turn this shower on for 10 seconds, get wet, turn it off, lather up. So it's not like, dude, I take a shower, I want to put on the music.
Yes.
I want the hot water.
Steam it up.
I want it to be peaceful. Even yesterday, I'm in there, and the Lord like spoke to me about a few things related to ministry, like I needed to hear, but for some reason in there, it's just like this place where I can hear from God. But now I'm in Africa, and I turn it on for 10 seconds, and it's freezing. And then I got to turn it off, and I lather up, and it's like, okay, I'm going to turn it on for 20 more seconds to rinse off, and that's it. That's it. It's not even...
They don't put this in the pamphlet.
No, this isn't in the training that you're going to do that at best, or the bucket shower. You're going to take the scoop, dip it in the bucket, pour it over you. The latrines, as you referenced, At night, if you shine the light down in that hole, you're going to see a lot of stuff.
Oh my goodness.
Moving, shaking.
Oh my gosh, the bugs and the vermin are down there.
Exactly, but you got to have the light, and all the bugs and the whole thing are attracted.
Something's crawling up in your leg all of a sudden.
You feel every moment. You feel like it is.
God.
There's been times the latrines have broke because they're just made out of bamboo, and people have fallen down in.
Oh,
they've had to pull them out.
No, they
had to pull them out of the latrine.
Poor Bob.
And strip them naked in the village.
Bob from Nevada.
And hose them down.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's happened.
This is not in the video.
In front of the whole village. There's been times I'm eating food in a mud hut, and there's first you watched him kill the goat, and you heard him kill the goat, and it's hanging from a tree, and then later that night you got to eat the goat because they killed this thing for you, and it's their best, and you're in a little mud hut, and there's a pot of goat sitting there,
a pot of goat,
and it's the whole goat, so everything is chopped up and everything is in that pot, and there's a light above the pot so you can see and eat, and they're going to let you eat first because you're the guest of honor.
Yeah.
But because the light is above the pot, all the termites are collecting to the light. And as you're eating the goat, John, the termites are falling into the pot of the goat that you got to eat. And so you're getting a lot of extra protein.
That's a good way to look at it.
That's not in the manual either. But honor is in the manual.
Yeah, sure.
And you have to honor the people. And if you need to throw up later, or if your stomach does other things later, and you got to go to that latrine that you don't want to see,
and you don't want to fall in at night,
then you deal with some stuff. But you know you're called to it, and you know you're supposed to be there.
No, God, don't call me to that. I'm fine. I'm fine in St. Louis. You know, I want to be able to just sit here in my nice, comfy house, and I feel like, God, this is how I pray for y'all. Lord, thank you for the real Christians. Thank you for the real Christians that'll go out into the mission field. And thank you that not only will they suffer the humiliation of being hosed off from falling in the poop latrine, while all the foreign little kids laugh and point. And
yeah.
Not only will they do that, Lord, thank you that they will raise their own funds, that they will ask everyone they know to pay for this trip because no one else is paying for it. Like, it's crazy. Like, the mission style is like, hey, we're going on a missions trip to Africa. We need you to raise $3,000 so you can go.
Yeah, and I need some zip-off pants. I need some wick-away shirts. Hey, I want to pray for you, though, because this is for you. You're like, hey, as those poor missionaries are over there ministering to 10 people in the village,
yeah,
Lord, I thank you that I get to sit here in the comfort of my awesome studio, and on a microphone I can reach hundreds and thousands of people via media. God, I thank you that I'm a media missionary to the nations while these foolish people raise all this money, and in a moment I can turn this off and I can go sit at my table and eat whatever I want.
Oh, yes.
Or go jump in my pool.
Yeah, and then make some food for my kids and they won't eat it. Yeah, it's I when I hear stories like what you just told me, it makes me so thankful for what I have and so thankful for what God has brought into my life. As just an American, like the luxuries that we have, are so so incredible compared to other nations.
Even being at, let's put it even like this: you're at a restaurant, right? And it's a nicer place somewhere overseas, but a lot of places don't have ice.
Oh yeah,
so
I've
it's
been
hot.
to Mexico like that.
It's hot, and you're like, oh, they got the good Coca-Cola because it's got the cane sugar in it.
Cane sugar, bro.
So it just hits different, and it's great. And you're
glass bottle.
Yeah, and you need that little boost. And you're eating this awesome chicken with this garlic sauce on it and these fries they call chips, and it's amazing. And you go to drink your Coke, and it's lukewarm, and you want that thing to be ice cold because it's 90 degrees outside.
Yeah,
but there's no ice, and if there was ice, you wouldn't be able to eat it or drink it because it's made from water. It's going to make you sick anyway.
Yeah, dude. The idea that people sign up to do this, that you have signed, Kurt Wilson himself says, you know what, Jesus, thank you for saving me. I will go wherever you call me. And then Jesus points to this map. He sends you to China.
I went to China on a short-term trip when I was in college, and I said, I will never go to China again.
Oh, no, what happened?
I don't like it. It's not for me. I don't enjoy the culture as much. I don't enjoy the food as much.
Don't like sushi no much? Yeah.
And just all the stuff, right? And then what do? I end up there for 2 years.
Well, you can't tell God what you don't want to do. That's what I say all the time. I'm like, I've told him many times that I don't want to be a missionary, and it's my deep-seated fear in the back of my mind that, oh my gosh, one day he's gonna call me. I'm gonna have to go to some Guatemala. My wife has been on many missions trips to Guatemala and other places. Praise God for all y'all. This is not my style. I am a stay-at-home kind of guy, and you guys signed up for this, and so not only did you sign up for Guatemala, but you were interesting. Like you got hooked up with Iris, and you ended up in Mozambique and Africa, and you've been all over the place.
Yeah, been to so many different places and nations. You know, you never set out thinking like I'm going to go to all these places. It's just opportunities come up, different seasons, or and again, like missions has been more about what God has done in me.
Oh, that's a good word.
Than what I've done for other people. I've been saying it like this: missions is more about obedience than outcome. Like, and it's the same here in ministry. Like in North City, what we're doing, like it's about the obedience. We show up, but God has done so much in me, in my character, in my development, and what I need and what I don't need, and how He provides and how I think I need to provide. Just the whole thing. It's made me a better Jesus follower. It's made me a better husband, father, all those things, because I've just been in this place where I can't control things. I can't do it on my own. I can't figure it out. Like you said, man, any cross-cultural situation, you got to learn language. You got to learn culture.
Yep.
You don't even, like, here's another one. Just a simple example of like we were talking about before. You go to brush your teeth, right?
Uh-oh.
But you can't brush it with the water that's local unless your stomach gets used to it, because you'll probably get sick. So you got to have like bottled water.
That Montezuma's revenge. Right?
Yeah, exactly. To put on your toothbrush to brush your teeth, and you got to rinse with that as well. Just all these things, like you have to think so much harder instead of just getting up, stumbling in the bathroom, half asleep.
Oh yeah.
And brushing your teeth or making your coffee.
Yeah.
Similar thing. You can't just go put your tap water, fill up your kettle, make the AeroPress like I do every morning. Yeah, there's all these things.
The coffee connoisseur.
Exactly.
Yeah. You got to have the luxuries now that you're back.
Costco, man. We coffee at Costco. So
this is how I know you're the real deal, though, Kurt, is because you see the memes and stuff on social media nowadays, like people going to mission trips with church to get their selfie picture. Feel like they've done a good job and all this. Like you were doing this before there was the cell phone picture, before there was Instagram. So that's how I know. Like when you're in the middle of the mud, in the hut, in the latrines and all that, and there ain't not a camera in sight. And you just decided to, pack up your things, get over there, and just help however you can, whatever it looks like, whether it's ministering, handing out tracts, building something. I'm sure you've done a number of different projects.
I've almost done everything under the sun. Different missions training schools, physical church buildings, evangelism, discipleship, kids programs, and every village feeding, just everything in between. And I think it just, I don't know, in America, we sometimes like, oh, I'm called to this, like this, it's like so small and niche, it's like I'm called to this little piece of the puzzle. But that's why I love missions, in the sense like it's all hands on deck. Like everybody's going to do whatever it takes, because there's no one else to do it. There is no one else to do it. There isn't the children's ministry coming in to do this part, and the people setting up the building, and then the media ministry, and then the ushers and the greeters and the parking lot. Like, no, like you're it. Like if you're gonna feed like 5,000 to 10,000 kids for a Christmas event, like you're gonna be doing some stuff you never did before. You might be in the kitchen, you might be carrying food, you might be doing security because these kids want to, jump the line and get food, and they don't want to wait. You don't know what you're gonna do. So it's a humbling, because there is no glory in it, and I'm not taking the selfie.
Right.
I'm not writing the newsletter to get anything. I'm just showing up and doing
dude, let's talk about that for a minute. So people don't know this about you, but I do, and I'm going to bring it up. Is that missionaries often ask for money to raise money to go on trips, and oftentimes you might be familiar with it at your church or something, where like, Susie Teenager, has decided that youth group's going to go on a week-long mission trip. It's not really calling. It's more of a, hey, we're going to go do this thing. And maybe they hit grandma up for a couple $100 so they can go to
write a letter to
their friends or whatever.
Email probably now, but it used to be letter.
Yeah, and so people probably have that's their touch point on this kind of thing, right? So, but what you're doing is different, or what you have done, because you're doing something sort of different now. But what you have done in the past is that you've gone and done the mission work, but you have relied, and I don't know if this is an Iris model or a Kurt model. You've relied entirely by faith that God is going to supply you without being sort of outgoing in terms of your fundraising efforts. So you have lived not only an interesting life in terms of where you've been, but you've lived an interesting life in terms of financially how you make things work and how your trust in God supports that life. And so talk to me what it's like to live without knowing where that paycheck is going to come from or where the money's going to supply the need.
Yeah, so we have lived a by faith model, which there's different models, and I'm for whatever. There's different biblical models, I would say.
Yeah.
And so not everyone has to do what we've done, but running with Iris over the years, Iris Global, it's a by faith. Hey, God's going to provide. Like if God's called you to this, then He's going to show up, and like it's one of the core values is like we need the supernatural in everyday life, and part of the supernatural is God's provision. Don't worry about the birds. Don't worry about this. Like God's got you. He's going to show up for you. And for them, part of that came from George Mueller. Did that. He brought in orphans, and he lived by faith.
Okay.
And often they'd be sitting down to have a meal at lunch, let's say, and he's got all these kids there, but there'd be no food. There'd literally be no food to eat. And he would pray, and he'd just say, God, I just thank you for this food that's going to come. And there'd be a knock on the door, and someone would provide food right then and there. And for years, his ministry was sustained like that. And Iris has been sustained like that for, I think, like 30 years, where God just shows up. It's a dependence on him. It's kind of like if he doesn't do it, we got nothing. And so in that, we've been in a different like personal journey of that. And so it was when you're overseas, it's easier because you can't work, right? You can't work overseas.
Yeah.
And so you're in Africa, and people say, oh man, they're going to Africa. They're feeding the kids. They're doing this. We're going to give them money. We're going to support them monthly. We're going to give them, whatever. And so we do an awareness of what we're doing. Like, hey, we're going here. We're doing this. But we don't ask. We don't. But it's really freeing because I'm not meeting someone to get something from someone. So whether it's you as a friend, I'm not like our relationship now isn't like, oh, I'm friends with John and he's got a great job. So can I get some money out of him?
Yeah. We all know those people who,
or
hit you up.
Or, someone just connected me to this really rich businessman.
Yeah.
And we have zero relationship. I don't even know if he believes in me or my family or the mission, but I'm going to jump over all that just so I can get something out of him because I need to pay for this thing. Right. And so when we first were going 10 years ago to Iris, to the Harvest School of Missions, I was not in this frame of mind that I am now because I'd been paid to do missions before. In college, I sent out letters and to get support for my short-term trips. But here it was in 2012, I'm going overseas. I need all this money. So I like to call it, I had the whiteboard of doom.
What's that?
So I had a white dry erase board, and I put shots, this much money, renew passport, this much money, airfare, this much money, clothes, this much money, whatever it was. And I had all the stuff broken down, and I began to think, okay, so-and-so can give me this, and so-and-so can give me that, and I can do this job over here, and I can figure it out. And what I realized in that, I was trying to make it happen myself. And I was stressing about it. It was really difficult. So eventually we're overseas for, 2-3 years back and forth, and we're just trusting God and he provides. Then we come back to the States, and at different times I worked part-time jobs or ministry jobs or secular jobs or whatever you want to say. And so there was some kind of income. But in 2018, we stepped out finally for the first time ever as a family in America by faith. Just how we done in Africa. And it was not easy.
Different walk.
At all. But there was something in me on the ministry side of things that I knew I need more time to do ministry over here. I don't know exactly I know what I'm called to do, but I don't know how to do it yet, but I need the time to figure it out. And I can't do it if I'm working still, any other job. So with our second child being 6 weeks old and leaving a job that I got paid more money than I ever made in my life, we stepped out by faith to be missionaries to St. Louis, which we'd already been, but that's how we view ourselves. And not enough monthly support, no support of a local church at that point.
Yeah.
But actually the first people to support us, and they didn't even, I don't think they knew what we were doing. They just believed in what we were doing, were some of our Africa friends, or some of our missionary friends in Africa.
That's funny.
So they're over there, and they don't have enough money to do what they're doing. And they're feeding kids, and they're rescuing women out of sex trafficking, and they're building stuff. And the Lord speaks to them, hey, we want you to encourage Kurt and Brooke because, living by faith as a missionary in America, people always think, well, why? Because you could get a job. But again, if you have the job, you don't have time to do what he's called you to do.
Sure.
So they said, hey, we're going to give you some money this month. We don't have it for ourselves, but we don't have it for ourselves anyway, so we're going to give it to you. We want to just encourage you. And this is right at the time we're stepping out by faith.
Oh, my goodness.
So they give us an amount of money, and we're encouraged. Of course, it isn't enough, right? So it's like daily, almost moment by moment dependence on the Lord. And from there, the next month they sent money again, because it was going to be for a few months or whatever it was. Every month they'd send a certain amount. And the next month they sent us money, and it was 10 times what they sent us the month before.
Whoa.
So immediately, Facebook message, hey, I think you put an extra 0 on that. And they got back to me and they said, no, we didn't. When we gave to you, the Lord blessed us like, I don't know, 10 or 15 or 20 times.
Oh, wow.
And so we wanted to sow that back into you this time.
Holla.
So
Jesus.
that was sort of the beginning, but man, it was, we lived like that for 3 years, but then God provided other ways miraculously for our ministry, which we still live by faith because we don't ask. And there's been one generous person that's basically funded the last 2 years of our ministry, and a lot of what we've done was pray for the Lou. And so we're still by faith. But for 3 years, we had no clue where it was coming. There were times it was lean. There were times it was difficult.
Yeah.
We had friends that would do things like buy memberships to certain things for the kids. So like, a year at the Magic House. So as a parent, it's kind of like, well, I can go without, but I want my kids to have something.
Oh.
So now it's like, for the next year, we got a free membership to the Magic House because this person blessed us. So there's all these little things. Cars. Our car, we got given a car during this because we only had one car. We needed 2. So for a couple of years, we had an SUV that we really, really needed as our family grew. But then that car broke down, and it was not gonna. It wasn't gonna make it any longer.
You have car problems.
And then someone else, family member, gave us another car to replace that car. So it isn't always like all the money's there. There were times of debt, but then it got paid off, and it's just it's a faith journey, and we're still on it. To be honest, I'm thankful now at the moment to receive a salary for what I do, but it's not enough with everything going on in the world. Like we're still
inflation catches up to your.
There's an element. There's still a large element of faith that we're trusting God, and it's year by year. Because eventually the ministry funds will run out if the Lord doesn't come through, but he has in miraculous ways.
Yeah, you've got some great stories that I've heard over the years. One of the things I want to talk about is that you mentioned sort of like when you were in Africa and other places, it was a little easier to raise money. And this is my take on things, is that like it's a little easier to give to something that you're not near. So like, if I'm at your church and I'm asking you for money to go to Africa to go on a missions trip, you're like, oh, okay, cool. I'll give John $50 to go on his missions trip or whatever and have.
Yeah.
If I go to that same person and say, hey, I am doing an outreach down the street, we're looking for some support to the checks don't get as they don't come out as often. And I feel like if I was doing Testimony House Africa,
yeah,
I could fill my coffers up to the ceiling. But doing Testimony House and asking people to be involved with your revival event in town or asking for help in different ways, it seems to be harder to get someone to either support, either financially or with their own bodies, to get a large group of people to help support you in your efforts. Like you said, the people who were supporting you were people in Africa supporting the overseas mission. This is the same principle.
Yeah.
The same principle is that we're willing to sow into somebody who's far away from us, more than we're necessarily willing to sow into someone in their own backyard.
Yeah, I think part of it goes back to mindset. So it's like, missions is over there, wherever over there is.
Right.
And I don't know, when I was younger, people came as missionaries from Africa or from China or from wherever, and they show the slideshow, the old school slideshow, and you're thinking, oh, that's success, and they're hanging out with these people and they know them. But it's different when it's in St. Louis, for me, a mile north of the Fox. So people go to the Fox, they know what that is. But I could take you people I know that we minister to by name, but then you're going to be judging whether the fruit's good enough to fund it, right? There's this thing, it's almost if you fund it in America, you need the return on investment of what you think success is. But again, I'm not against success. I want to see fruit. I want to see fruit that remains, but it's the obedience and the faithfulness and the sowing the seed. But God's got to water it and it's got to grow, but it's going to grow differently. It's going to look differently. It's much easier to be saying, okay, there's a children's home in Africa and we got 300 beds and we could put 300 kids in there off the street, but we need $30 a month to do that. And this kid has rags and a bloated belly and he looks like this, but if you do this, I'll show you a picture that he looks like this.
Yeah.
Even though you don't know if that kid's going to follow Jesus, you don't know what they're going to become, but there's something tangible you can see. So you're like, yes, I'll give my $30. Yes, there's a great need. And I think a lot of times here in America, we don't like where I am specifically in the inner city in some of the roughest neighborhoods, we're able just to dismiss it, not look at it, and not see the need in the same way. So we're not going to fund it in the same way, because then if you fund me here, then you want to come see what I'm doing, and then you want to, well, I could get more return on my money if I do it wherever else.
Yeah, it's like the same thing when you see people complain, or not necessarily complain, but when people have thoughts about how the church is spending the tithe money, right? So, oh, well, I gave this month, and they're building some awning. I don't care about that awning. You know, like I don't care about that specific ministry that they're building up right now. I don't know if I'm going to give as much next month or whatever. That I've heard conversations like that over the years. I think it's like when you can see the money in use, it's a lot easier for you to be like, I don't think they're doing it right.
But for me, it all comes back to the relational connection.
Yeah.
So, I like anything you do with Testimony House, I believe in, because I believe in you.
Yeah.
And I've done so many different, since you've known me, I've done different focused ministry in different ways, whether it's mission schools or conferences or the prayer effort. And you've never said like, well, Kurt, why aren't you doing this or why aren't you doing that? You might ask me why I'm changing, but it's all related to vision. But you're like, hey, if that's what God's calling you to do, like, I'm going to cheer you on because like I believe in you. We have a relationship. It's much more that than the project focus. It's like, no, I know John's heart and know what he's doing, and I'm going to support that. Or I know Kurt's heart, and so I trust that they're going to use the funds for what it's needed for, or even, like even this year, like we were able to do billboards for Pray for the Lou for the first time. Like I've wanted to do that forever. Had 4 digital billboards. Now, was that worth the money? I don't really know, but I feel like we needed to do it to raise awareness, to let people know like God's eyes are on this city and there's a people that are praying nothing impossible. Now, did I get 10 stories of 10 people that went by the billboard and got saved? I didn't, but yet I think it was useful to what we were doing and what we're trying to accomplish and what we're trying to raise up. But I can't write that in a newsletter to you. I can't sit down and tell you, I can't tell you 10 stories of like, we did this with the money and then this is what happened. There's sometimes it's just like, we're following the Lord. We're doing what he asks us to do. And it doesn't always, like, I guess what I'm trying to get at and what I think we're discussing is like, people want to sow the money to get the highest form of like what they think success is.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like if I give this money, I want 10 souls, or I want this. Like,
or I need a well-built.
Okay. If I give this, there's going to be a well-built and 5,000 people. And I get it. Like we're metrics, numbers, visual driven measurement.
Yep.
And especially in our Instagram, TikTok, Facebook culture, like anything we do is judged in about 5 seconds.
Yes.
Like look at the picture, like even, this Revival Fest that we're at, people that weren't there or maybe deciding if they wanted to come, all they have to do is watch the live stream for 5 seconds, and they're going to determine in their mind whether that's a successful event based on what they see, who they don't see, and it's like that for all of our ministries. It's like we get like about 5 seconds for people to determine whether what we're doing is worthwhile and they want to engage with it, or they're like, yeah, that's a waste of time.
Yeah.
And especially for me related to prayer, because how do you put metrics and success on prayer?
It's almost impossible. I as you were talking, I was thinking, how do you even measure Revival Fest? Do you measure by the number of people who showed up? Do you measure it by the number of people who gave their lives to the Lord? Because it wasn't that many, considering most of the people that I saw there and relationally that we know were already Christians. Like at this revival thing, we're believing that there was a seed sowed into us to be the harvesters,
right?
And things like that. But it's like, how do you measure revival?
And and people went out every day sharing the gospel.
Yeah.
That wasn't live streamed and no one could watch that. And you couldn't see the conversations of, 20, 25 different teams sharing the gospel in Chesterfield and the surrounding areas. So we don't always have the full picture. Yeah. And we definitely don't always have God's picture of what success is. And in Hebrews 11, he talks about all these people by faith that did all these amazing things, but yet they didn't attain it. Like they didn't fully get it.
They didn't see the end of
they didn't see it all, And so I don't know, it's just this weird thing. So I'm really it's freeing for me that I don't have to meet with someone to get something from them or get money from them,
Yeah.
and that I can trust like what I'm doing. So,
But it's got to be so tough, Kurt. I mean, I know you personally. You know, like I share with our people, you know, who might be listening to this, because I know, because I stepped out, I quit my job. You know, I quit a job. I was making a ton of money, almost $100,000 a year.
yeah,
You know, 10 years ago, and I was like, God, I can do more with this money for you than, you know. He's like, no, you need to quit. I was like,
yeah,
but no, I can write big checks to the church. I can do things, you know, I can do things. No, I need you to quit. And I went 18 months without a paycheck. So I absolutely know what it's like to live and trust God for your money.
yeah,
And even after I got that paycheck only lasted for 6 months. Then I was without a job again, you know? So it's like, I know that I don't want to say necessarily hard, because you may not describe it that way, but it tests your faith in ways that most people don't understand.
I'll give an analogy of it. Not always, but sometimes it feels like the moment where you're at the Red Sea and the Egyptian army is just pressing at every side.
Yeah.
And you got to cross over. And the Lord, you know, the Lord's called you to more things, but the finances aren't there. The bill needs to get paid. You want to take your kids to Chick-fil-A and not feel guilty about it.
Right.
You just want, like, you want to go spend the $30 at Chick-fil-A. And, you know, we talked earlier, like, we don't want to take them out, but we will take them to Chick-fil-A because they got the play area.
Yeah.
So, but you're at that Red Sea moment and you're like, Lord, this
Chick-fil-A is Lord's chicken, by the way, so it's fine.
It is. I like Cane's too, though. So
gag.
I know.
Gag. Boo.
You probably don't like the sauce, but it's
No, the sauce is fine. It's just that it's just chicken.
yeah.
It's just chicken. It's like when Popeyes everybody trying to
Yeah.
get on the Popeyes
Well,
train.
you got the OG, and everyone wants
First
in.
off, it's the service, bro. It's them pickles. I worked there for a long time, so anyway.
Yeah. So that's what it feels like. And then sometimes the sea splits, and you're like in the promised land, and it's amazing, and the testimonies are coming, and people are getting saved, and churches are engaging what you're doing,
Yes.
and you got radio spots on Joy FM, and you're on KMOV4, and you're telling the whole city what you're about to do, and all, you know, you're at St. Charles Family Arena, and Winter Jam's there, and you got a, you know, like, breakthrough. People are paying for stuff, and then you're back there again. You're like, oh man, I got to pay for my kid's school or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, oh, my muffler just ripped in 2 pieces on my car, and now I got to put a new muffler on it. I didn't think, you know, I'd have that expense this month.
Yeah.
So, but it's a journey, man. It's dependence. It's trust that God's going to continue to provide.
What do you do when it's not there? I mean, has it ever not been there?
There's times it's not there, and we, you know, pay our bills by credit, but believe God's going to pay it off, you know.
Yeah.
But here's what another thing that happens sometimes in those moments. There's really challenging conversations I have to have with my wife, and it's like, okay, this is where we are. Like, if something doesn't happen, not like you're an ultimatum. I'm not like putting a fleece out before God like Gideon, but
I've been there though.
You know,
yeah,
where
I
it's
get
like,
it if you would.
it's kind of like there have been those times along the way. Lord, I'll keep doing this, no problem. But I just need something to change in like the next month, just to know like you're with me still. You'll provide for me. And usually, so far, all those times something has. I feel like I'm kind of back there right now. Like, Lord, I need some more provision. I need you to come through, and not like I'm shifting course, because I know what's ahead of me. I know what He's called me to do, and it's big and it's massive, and it's kind of a crazy initiative. So, but then it's kind of like, okay, Lord, if you could take care of this stuff, then I can, because it can be distracting. It can be discouraging.
Yes, of course it could.
You don't feel like you can fully run after what God's called you to do, because you're like, you know, the last thing you want to do is work hard on ministry all day, and you're already working on things that are impossible unless God shows up, and then you got to go home, and you need them to show up there too.
Yeah, I find for myself that like in seasons where we've had excess, it's easy to quickly get in a place where you forget that God brought it.
Yeah.
You know, that like you begin to expect it, not feel entitled to it, but like you're like, oh, this is what normal feels like now for a little while. But then it's like, that's not normal. Normal is trusting God for everything.
Yeah.
Like that's what normal is, and like having that atmosphere.
I found over the last couple of years, because God's blessed us in amazing ways, sold a house, made some money, bought a new house. So I had some money in the bank, but I almost like became an orphan spirit again, where it's like, I got to hold on to this, because it, like, once this dries up, there's no more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, God, you've blessed me more than you ever have. But I'm like holding on to every dollar, because once it disappears, I'm like, well, I don't have a house to sell again. So God's not going to be able to provide in that way, or how's it going to happen? And so it's almost been harder living by faith for a portion of my finances than it was for those 3 years when I had it all. Now that's not true, because there were some moments in those 3 years I'm like, God, this is really, really, really hard.
It's rough.
That's why my beard is as gray as it is today.
That's where the grays came from.
That's where the grays came from.
It wasn't the kids. It
wasn't the kids. It was like, Jesus, please. But God's always been faithful, and we just continue to move forward and trust him, even though honestly, I don't know if it ever gets easier.
Yeah.
On some level.
Yeah, not for me. Trusting God for money is something that I've learned to do. It's not necessarily something I like to do.
Yeah.
There's something about loving God enough to know that, like, no matter what happens, Lord, whether I lose my house, I lose my car, it does not matter. I'm still serving you wherever you have me. If I'm in prison, if I'm on the streets, if I have to go to the mission field, if I don't want to go to the mission field. Like, I'm at a point in my relationship with God where, like, I'll do it. I do a kicking and screaming, but I'll do it, But what I have learned and what you have learned and experienced is that he's good.
Yeah.
He's good to provide what we need. And he's good to give us vision too, because the vision that I've been walking out here for 10 years saved this week.
Come on.
And it's been exciting. It's definitely not been the journey I thought I was going to be on. I didn't think I'd be at this point 10 years ago. I thought I'd be further ahead.
Yeah.
I thought that I'd, within a couple of years I would have been a Billy Graham or somebody, like in my baby Christian mind.
Yeah.
I was ready to knock down, that baby Christian.
Yeah.
Get everybody saved today. Yeah. Line them up. Let's lay hands on them.
Lay hands on them, get them filled up, get them going out, get them sharing the gospel.
Nothing will stop us.
It's going to multiply. Holy Spirit's coming.
Yeah, and then you realize, okay,
freedom.
Not everybody wants
healing.
to talk to Jesus about me, with me, and so you just keep going through those seasons of ministry, and like you said, you had mentioned that, like, you've pivoted a few times and gone in different directions, but relationally we support each other because we know where we're trying to go in terms of we're following Jesus, regardless of what that looks like, right? And so for you had mentioned that you've even got a big initiative coming up now, so let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so we've been praying on the ground, prayer walking for 3 or 4 years now in St. Louis. Yeah, every neighborhood. Personally, every neighborhood has the church.
Because St. Louis has 72 neighborhoods. We need to back up.
So there's 70 plus neighborhoods. So I prayer walked them all personally, which led to a Pray for the Lou Day, because the Lou is the nickname for St. Louis, where we prayer walked as the church in every neighborhood at the same time. And then eventually we opened that up and said, hey, wherever you are, whether in those neighborhoods or other neighborhoods in the metro area, we're going to do prayer walking. But next, we really feel like we always knew that the prayer was unto the gospel going forth, and unto the harvest. We say it like this: we don't pray and stay, we pray and go. Out of Luke 10, they prayed because the harvest is plentiful, the laborers are few, but then they went out with nothing, lambs among wolves, into the harvest. So we're working next summer to have I don't like calling it an event, because then it just seems like, oh, it's just another event. But for me, it's not an event, because it's tying all the relationships together and the nets that are in different places to really see the harvest come in. But next summer, we're going to have a Nothing Impossible week. The slogan, one of the mottos over St. Louis, is Nothing Impossible.
Yeah, which is great slogan.
Just a great thing that some of the city folks back in the day, early 1900s, declared.
100 years ago.
100 plus years ago. So we know that all things are possible for those that believe. All things are possible for God. So we believe God is raising up a people in St. Louis with a pioneering spirit. We know that's part of what the call on St. Louis, who carry this Nothing Impossible. And so we want to see the gospel. First of all, we want to see worship celebration, prayer saturation, and gospel proclamation.
And everything's got a rhyme.
It's got a rhyme.
It's not being done right for Jesus.
It's got a rhythm, and it's got a rhyme with church participation.
I love it.
So we want to see the worship movement, the prayer movement, and the missions movement through the local church. And we want to see the gospel and prayer and worship go forth in all 79 neighborhoods at the same time for a week. So if nothing is impossible for God, right, what could it look like if we put worship and prayer? That's like laying the foundation. It's doing, we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. It's that work, the spiritual work, along with the gospel going forth in every neighborhood through a local church who's in that neighborhood every week to strengthen them. What if we have people that come from the worship, prayer, and missions movement from the nations,
right,
to be in St. Louis, to do what they already do and strengthen the local church? What if we do that every day for a week, and then at night we gather in a huge tent? We're believing in North City, a huge tent, and we worship and we pray and we share the gospel and we see people come to Jesus. Or we've been prayer walking every Saturday for 3 years.
Yeah, 3 years.
What if we see people give their lives to Jesus from all over the region, but in North City specifically? What if people get healed? What if they get set free? What if they get delivered from some of the things they've been in for generations? And what if those folks then could go to a local church that's partnering with us? And what if the church of the region could come and be a partner church, go to their Judea that Jesus told us to wait for the Holy Spirit to come. We'll go in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, to the ends of the earth. What if some of the county churches, the Metro East churches, could partner in the Judea with the church that's on the ground and strengthen them? And we could really show this city in a tangible way that nothing is impossible.
Right.
But it's all the things. Usually, worship is separate from prayer sometimes, and then prayer is separate from the gospel. But what if all of it converged to see a people going after this nothing impossible, where we really could, it's cliche, but shake a city for a whole week. Where everywhere you go, all these things are happening, and no one's left out. There's places for people to volunteer. There's people coming from the outside. We raise up for that week 24/7 prayer, that just covers it even through the night. And so it's really, I feel like everything I've done in my life ministry wise unto this point, it's like for this week, it's for this moment to raise up a nothing impossible people and to bring in the troops, to bring in the people that do this. But it's to strengthen the local church so that on the other side, when that last day is over, right, and we say amen in the tent and whatever happened, that there's a nothing impossible people carrying the gospel, carrying worship, carrying prayer across the region like never before. And it's kind of a catalytic jumpstart training to get people going everywhere in our region. So we're excited to say come meet us in the Lou.
Yeah,
like in
meet me in St. Louis.
Yeah, in 1904, meet me in the Lou for the World's Fair. 2023, meet me in the Lou to see a nothing impossible week. And then the beauty is, when people come and say, Kurt, we can't do that, we haven't seen that. So no, nothing's impossible. Like, you can't tell me we can't do that. Right, like you can't tell me we can't do all 79 neighborhoods. We already did it once in prayer walking in 2020.
Right. You've been ramping up to this.
Yeah,
man.
we've been building. We've been laying the foundation. Oh, you can't get that many churches. You can't get a county church to come into the partner with the city church for a week. Why would they want to do that? No, nothing's impossible. God's going to do it.
Yeah, God's made you this supernatural connector here in St. Louis. Now, I will say that I've had a heart for seeing revival in St. Louis since the time I got born again. God was giving me dreams about seeing revival shake this town in a way that I personally didn't even understand, because I was a baby Christian. I was getting dreams about fields being filled, 20,000 people being saved in a day. I was getting these visions, but I had not experienced any sort of revival event. I'd barely been to church, you know what I'm saying? So like, to have these kind of visions and not understand them, to not have seen the missions field and not know anything like people like Reinhard Bunke and those types of stories that you hear where like massive events take place and all of a sudden you see a place shaken, And so when we got connected, I think it was divine appointment for us to be together, you know. And what I've seen over the course of the last 3 years with you doing Pray for the Lou, is like God slowly like building up to something, right? So he's like, we're gonna pray at 3:14. We're gonna have one day where we all prayer walk the city, and then it's like, okay, we're gonna have a prayer week, and then we're gonna have a prayer community, and like he sent you into all the different churches, all the different areas, and you've been able to say, okay, God, I'll try to build a relationship, because that's what you do. You're not knocking on all the churches in St. Louis doors to be like, hey, I need money to support this thing.
Exactly.
You're like, hey, I want you to be a part of this. I'd love you to be a part of this. Let me tell you what I'm doing.
And here's how we can strengthen your church. Not like strengthen.
Most churches don't like this conversation though, Kurt.
Yeah.
Most churches, when they hear a parachurch ministry or anybody knock on the door say, hey, I've got something I'm doing, I want you to be a part of it, they're sort of like, good for you.
Yeah.
You stay over there, sort of stay on your lane. But but God's given you anointing because you've been able to connect with places and people that normally you don't see being connected with other outside organizations.
Well, we go in to listen, we go in to learn, we go in to serve, as well as like we're going to do what God's called us to do. But it's in that place of humility that if I can again strengthen or add strength to, or resources, or equip, or whatever word you want to use, like I've been able to travel the world and see some amazing things. And if you're not able to, but I'm able to bring that right to your community, to your neighborhood, to your doorstep, and help give that to you. Now you got to put them in your own context. It's missions. You might not use all of them. There might be one, like there might be 10 things that I know about John, or 10 resources, or 10 methods, or whatever, that I'm like, oh, I'm so excited about. But it might be the one little thing that a church grabs hold of for their culture, their context, their neighborhood, that really impacts them and changes them and helps them go forward. So I'm thankful to the Lord how he's opened doors, and he's but I don't go in, I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking you just to join my thing, to join an event. I'm trying to impact you and empower where you're at in your Jerusalem, where you're going to be after my event's over. You're going to be there next week, and you're going to be there next week.
Yep.
And you've been there for 20 years. And if I can help be a little catalyst or light a fire or whatever language you want to use, that's my heart, because then that's going over here and other things burning over there, and we just see these little fires start burning, man. Something will happen.
Well, I'm really excited because I really think that God's about to do something in the city more than I've ever felt before. Like when I first started having dreams about seeing revival, and whatever term you want to use, awakening or different things, souls, these kinds of things happen. And this is the first time in a long time, maybe since the very beginning, that I've really felt like it's here. Like it's about to happen. Like I've had seasons where I'm like, I hope it's happening. I hope it happens this weekend. I hope it happens this month or this year. But it's just felt dry season after dry season. But I really feel like we are in an anointed season where God's about to do great things. Why we're bringing back Let's Change St. Louis. I want to talk about all the cool things God's doing.
Yeah.
Pray for the Lou. Whatever else is coming up, Revival Fest, and I'm sure there's going to be 10 other places that are going to pop up, and you're going to see God do amazing things with people we've never met even yet in our own city. So I'm really excited about that. Kurt, tell them how they can get connected with Pray for the Lou or learn more about it.
Yeah, prayforthelou.org has info. We're updating that as we build to next year. We'll have a Pray for the Lou day like we've done before, hit the streets prayer walking, and then come together and worship, in addition to next summer doing this Nothing Impossible week. And of course we have our Facebook, our Instagram, and we go prayer walking still every Saturday morning. We just celebrated 3 years of prayer walking every Saturday morning. It's happened. And so it's beautiful to see a team of people from different churches come out. I mean, that's the main question. When we're prayer walking, people are like, what church are you from?
Yeah.
It's like, well, that person's from that church.
Yes.
And, it takes us like 5 minutes to explain to them. And they're like,
huh?
Why? Where do you stay? Where do you live?
I love when people get confused by Jesus.
Yeah, because they expect it to be the church down the street. So prayforlou.org, and, of course, Pray for Lou on Facebook or Instagram.
Yep.
We got that going on. And so we're also on Wednesdays leading our Fast for the Lou initiative. We're fasting breakfast and lunch and having people sign up. We'll send you a prayer focus, and we're just, wherever you're at, we're praying, because I keep saying to go farther, we got to go deeper. And so we're trying to go that deeper place. Back to what I want to just mention one more thing, how you're excited and you feel like something's about to happen.
Yeah.
I'm in so many different circles, as you alluded to, and a lot of people are talking about that. And I've personally felt like I'm in a season of greater preparation for what's coming. And I was talking to a friend, and most other people have said too, it's almost like when you're about, you're having a kid, right? You're going to have, your wife's pregnant, and she's going to give birth in 6, 7, 8, 9 months.
Yeah.
So there's this anticipation, and it's maybe good or bad, right? And for me, what I've noticed, we were talking earlier how, we have multiple kids. Every kid was different in my anticipation. It was like the first one, it's like, wow, I don't have a clue what I'm doing. The second one was like, oh man, now there's gonna be 2 kids and they need us all the time. The third one's like, oh my goodness, we're really outnumbered, we're in trouble, and there's no hope. And you prepare different for each kid, because the first time you get everything.
I got every photo of every day of their life.
You got everything.
My fourth kid, I've got 2 pictures.
You got every gadget, you got every stroller, you got every crib, you got every this, that, and the other thing. But every time is different. But what I know to be true is, even though there's anticipation, there still has to be preparation. You can't come home from the hospital once the baby's born and there's no room for him to stay in. Right. There's no crib, there's no clothes, you don't have diapers, you don't have formula. Or whatever it may be, you don't have all the different things you need. And so I feel like, as the body of Christ, and others are discerning as well, that we're in the anticipation and preparation stage. Like, it's not, we've heard it for years, revival's coming, or this is coming.
Yeah, I've heard it for years.
That's great, that's anticipation.
Yeah.
But we got to prepare ourselves.
I've been saying it too.
We got to prepare ourselves, because when it comes, like, we want to be the wineskin that can hold whatever God pours out, right? And we want to be able to run with it. We want to be able to steward it. We want to be able to discern it. We want to see it impact not just a church, but the church, right?
Sure.
We don't want to just, it's just this isolated little revival thing over here and this. No, like, we want to see it spread. So I think God is preparing us for whatever's coming, even though we don't know. Just the same way with a child. You don't know that child's personality. Mm-hmm. You don't know how they're going to be similar or different to previous. Like, you don't know.
Yep.
It's all unknown, but like, hey, the kid's coming, so we're going to get ready. And I feel like that's where we're at. Like, people are getting ready, whether that's whatever it is. You know, for me, it's prayer. It's doubling down on prayer. It's going deeper in prayer. It's less admin and less like doing the work, but really, God, what are you saying? What do you want to do? Trying to discern it. So.
Yep. PrayForLou.org. Everybody go give Kurt some money. And he's going to stick around for Let's Change St. Louis. So if you want to hear more of us talk about revival, you can head over to that page now, or that channel, or that video, or whatever it is. Anyway, guys, until next time, we pray you discover a future and a hope for your life today. Thanks.